Welcome to tonight's bedtime story, where we journey into a world filled with wonder and starlit dreams. As you settle in, take a deep breath. Let the day's worries fade away, and allow the gentle rhythm of this tale to guide you into a peaceful, restful sleep. In the quiet of the night, join Prince Aryan as he embarks on a celestial adventure, seeking wisdom and light among the stars. Close your eyes, relax, and let the soft melody of this story carry you to a place of calm and tranquility. Remember, you are safe, you are at peace, and soon you will drift off into a deep, serene sleep. Once upon a time, in a kingdom nestled between the mountains and the sea, there lived a young prince named Aryan. With hair as dark as the night and eyes that sparkled like the stars, Aryan was known throughout the land for his bravery and kindness. Yet, despite his many virtues, the prince's heart was often heavy, for he longed for something more, something that he could not name. He would often gaze up at the heavens, wondering what secrets the stars held and whether his destiny lay among them. In the royal library, where dust settled gently on ancient scrolls and tomes, Aryan spent many hours poring over the stories of old. Among the tales of heroes and monsters, there was one legend that caught his attention time and again: the tale of the celestial harp. It was said that the harp had been crafted by the gods themselves, its strings made from the very essence of stardust. The melodies it played were not of this world, but of the cosmos, each note a whisper of the universe's deepest mysteries. The legend told that the celestial harp was more than just an instrument. It was a guide, a beacon for those pure of heart who dared to seek the truth hidden among the stars. The harp, however, was lost, hidden away in a forgotten temple, its location known only to the gods. Many had searched for it, driven by greed or curiosity, but none had ever returned. As time passed, the legend of the celestial harp faded into obscurity, dismissed by most as a mere fairy tale. But not by Aryan. The story of the harp stirred something deep within him, a yearning that would not be silenced. He felt as though the harp called to him, as if the melodies of the cosmos were playing softly in the background of his life, just out of reach. Though he spoke of it to no one, Aryan's thoughts were consumed by the legend. He dreamed of distant stars and forgotten temples, of journeys through the heavens where only the bravest could tread. One day, as the sun dipped low on the horizon and the sky blazed with hues of gold and crimson, Aryan stood alone on the palace balcony. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, and the first stars began to twinkle in the deepening twilight. As he stared up at the sky, lost in his thoughts, a sudden breeze swept through the courtyard, carrying with it a sense of something ancient, something otherworldly. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a stranger cloaked in robes that shimmered like the night itself. The stranger's face was hidden beneath a hood, but their presence was both powerful and serene. Arian, though startled, felt no fear. Instead, a strange sense of recognition washed over him, as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. "Prince Arian," the stranger spoke, their voice like the rustle of leaves in a midnight forest. "I have come with a message and a gift." Arian's heart quickened, but he remained composed. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady. "I am but a traveler of the stars, a servant of the cosmos," the stranger replied, "and I bring you word of the celestial harp." At the mention of the harp, Arian's breath caught in his throat. "The celestial harp? Does it truly exist?" The stranger nodded slowly. "Indeed, it does. It awaits in a temple forgotten by time, far beyond the reach of ordinary men. But you, Prince Arian, are no ordinary man. The harp has called to you, as it did to the heroes of old. If you have the courage, you may seek it out and claim the wisdom it offers." From within the folds of their cloak, the stranger produced a small ancient map. Its edges were frayed, and the ink seemed to shimmer with a light of its own. "This map will guide you to the temple," the stranger said, handing it to Arian. "But be warned, the journey will be fraught with peril. Only those with a heart true and pure can hope to succeed." Arian took the map, his hands trembling with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The map was unlike any he had seen before, its symbols and markings unfamiliar, yet somehow he understood them, as if the knowledge had been inside him all along. "Will you undertake this journey?" the stranger asked, their gaze piercing through the shadows of the hood. Arian looked up at the stars once more, their light guiding him as it always had. "Yes," he whispered, more to himself than to the stranger. "I will." And with that, the stranger stepped back into the shadows, their form dissolving into the night, leaving Arian alone with the map and the weight of his decision. The celestial journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The night after Prince Arian received the map from the mysterious stranger, sleep eluded him. He lay awake in his grand chamber, the silken sheets a comfort he could not fully enjoy. His thoughts were consumed by the legend of the celestial harp and the journey that lay ahead. The moonlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the night. Though the palace was quiet, Arian's mind buzzed with anticipation and a flicker of fear. As dawn approached, he rose from his bed, unable to stay still any longer. He dressed in simple traveling clothes, knowing that the finery of a prince would be of no use where he was headed. The map, carefully rolled and tucked into a leather pouch, hung from his belt. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as though eager to be unfurled and followed. Arian descended the marble staircase, his footsteps light yet purposeful. He passed through the grand halls of the palace, where the portraits of his ancestors watched over him with solemn eyes. They too had faced challenges in their time, but none had undertaken a journey such as this. Arian wondered if they would be proud or if they would caution him against venturing into the unknown. In the courtyard, the early morning mist clung to the stone statues and the dew-kissed flowers. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and fresh blooms. Arian's horse, a sturdy black stallion named Zephyr, awaited him, saddled and ready. The stable master, who had been roused from his sleep by Arian's unexpected visit, handed the prince the reins with a curious look. "Where are you headed at this hour, Your Highness?" the stable master asked, his voice gruff with concern. "On a journey," Arian replied, his voice firm yet kind. "But do not worry, I shall return." The stable master nodded, though his brow remained furrowed. "May the gods watch over you then." With a final nod, Arian mounted Zephyr and rode out of the palace gates, the sound of hooves echoing against the cobblestones. The city was still asleep, its streets empty and quiet. As he passed through, the prince couldn't help but glance back at the palace one last time, its towers bathed in the first light of dawn. He knew that when he returned, if he returned, he would not be the same. The road ahead was long and winding, leading him away from the familiar and into the wild, untamed lands beyond the kingdom's borders. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the landscape changed, from rolling hills to dense forests, each step taking him further from the world he knew. By midday, Arian found himself in a place where the trees grew tall and close together, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sun. The Forest of Whispers, it was called, a place of mystery and magic, where travelers often found themselves lost, both in body and mind. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the forest surrounded him, rustling leaves, the distant call of a bird, the creaking of old wood. As he ventured deeper into the forest, the path became less distinct, the undergrowth thicker. It was then that Arian felt it, the presence of something otherworldly. The trees, ancient and wise, seemed to watch him with unseen eyes, and the whispers began. At first, they were faint, like the distant murmurs of a stream, but as Arian pressed on, they grew louder, more insistent. The voices spoke in tongues he did not understand, yet their meaning was clear. They warned of danger, of deceit, and of the trials that awaited. Some voices tried to tempt him, offering power and glory if only he would turn back and abandon his quest. Others mocked him, calling him foolish for seeking a legend that had led so many to ruin. But Arian's heart was steadfast. He remembered the words of the mysterious stranger. Only those with a true and pure heart could succeed. He knew that these voices, though unsettling, were tests designed to shake his resolve. He would not be swayed. As the whispers grew louder, Arian closed his eyes and focused on the map's memory, letting it guide him as the stranger had promised it would. The voices began to fade, and the path before him became clearer, as though the forest itself acknowledged his determination. He rode on, his courage unwavering. Finally, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Arian emerged from the forest, its whispers now a distant echo. Before him stretched the vast valley of echoes, its towering cliffs casting long shadows across the land. The next trial awaited, and though Arian's heart was heavy with the weight of his journey, he pressed on, knowing that the celestial harp was one step closer. The mysterious stranger's words echoed in his mind. The harp has called to you, as it did to the heroes of old. With that thought, Arian continued, determined to prove himself worthy of the celestial journey that awaited him. The Forest of Whispers was a place of legend, where the trees were said to be as old as the world itself. Their roots dug deep into the earth, and their branches reached high into the sky, intertwining to form a dense canopy that shrouded the forest in perpetual twilight. As Prince Arian entered its shadowed depths, he felt the weight of the forest's ancient presence settle upon him, as if the very air was alive with memories of those who had come before him, those who had ventured in but never returned. Zephyr, Arian's faithful steed, hesitated at the forest's edge, his ears twitching as if he too sensed the forest's strange aura. Arian leaned forward, stroking the horse's neck to soothe him. "Steady, my friend," he whispered. "We have faced many dangers together, and this is but another challenge we must overcome." With gentle encouragement, Zephyr stepped forward, and together they crossed into the Forest of Whispers. The moment they did, the sounds of the outside world faded away, replaced by an eerie silence that made Arian's skin prickle. The trees stood tall and close, their bark a deep shadowed grey, their leaves rustling softly in a breeze that seemed to come from nowhere. It was a silence that was not truly silent, for beneath it there was a hum, a low murmur that Arian soon recognized as the forest's whispers. The voices began as barely audible murmurs, blending with the rustling of leaves and the creaking of branches. But as Arian and Zephyr moved deeper into the forest, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They spoke in a language that was both familiar and strange, a tongue that seemed to echo from the very roots of the earth. The words were unclear, but the intent behind them was not. They were warnings, laced with fear and caution. "Turn back," one voice urged, soft and sorrowful. "Do not go further," another hissed, filled with dread. But others were more insidious, their tones laced with mockery. "Foolish prince," they taunted, "seeking what cannot be found." Arian clenched his jaw, refusing to be swayed. He knew that the forest was testing him, that these whispers were meant to unravel his resolve. Yet even as he pushed forward, doubts began to creep into his mind. What if the harp was just a myth? What if he was chasing shadows, wasting time on a fool's errand while his kingdom needed him? But then, in the midst of the forest's cacophony, another voice broke through. It was soft, like a lullaby sung by a mother to her child, and it carried with it a sense of warmth and comfort. "Trust in your heart, Arion," it whispered. "The truth lies within." The prince's heart steadied at these words, and he knew, without understanding how, that this was the voice he must follow. It was not the loudest nor the most insistent, but it resonated with a purity that cut through the noise. Arion closed his eyes and listened, allowing the voice to guide him. The path beneath Zephyr's hooves seemed to shift, the undergrowth parting to reveal a clearer trail. For hours, Arion followed the voice through the twisting, shadowed paths of the forest. The whispers around him grew fainter, though they never truly vanished, always lingering at the edge of his awareness, like ghosts that could not rest. But Arion paid them no heed, his focus solely on the soft, guiding voice that led to him ever deeper. At last, as the light of day began to wane and the shadows grew longer, Arion found himself at the heart of the forest. Before him stood a great tree, larger and older than any other, its trunk wide and gnarled, its branches reaching toward the heavens like the arms of a giant. The ground beneath it was soft and mossy, untouched by time. The whispers ceased entirely as Arion dismounted Zephyr and approached the tree. He placed a hand on its rough bark, feeling the pulse of life within it, as ancient as the world itself. At that moment, the voice spoke again, clearer than before. "You have passed the first trial, Prince Arion," it said. "The forest has tested your heart, and you have proven yourself worthy. The path to the celestial harp is now open to you." As the voice faded, the tree before him began to glow with a soft ethereal light. A doorway, previously hidden within the bark, slowly revealed itself, leading to a path that wound its way out of the forest and toward the next trial. Arion's heart swelled with relief and determination. He had conquered the forest of whispers, and with this victory, he knew that he could face whatever lay ahead. Mounting Zephyr once more, Arion took a deep breath and guided his horse through the doorway, the glow of the ancient tree lighting their way. Behind him, the whispers of the forest faded into silence, and before him, the path to the Valley of Echoes stretched out, awaiting his arrival. The celestial journey had only just begun, but Arion's resolve had never been stronger. As Prince Arion emerged from the shadowed depths of the Forest of Whispers, the landscape before him transformed into a stark and haunting beauty. The trees gave way to vast barren cliffs that towered on either side of a narrow valley. This was the Valley of Echoes, a place where sound itself held power, where every word, every whisper, Every footfall was amplified 1,000-fold, reverberating through the air until it became something other than what it once was. Arion dismounted Zephyr and surveyed the valley. The path before him was narrow and treacherous, winding between jagged rocks and steep drops. The air was still, almost too still, as if the valley were holding its breath, waiting for him to make the first sound. Arion knew that this was no ordinary place. The Valley of Echoes had a reputation for ensnaring travelers with their own words, twisting and distorting them until they lost all sense of reality. Arion took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had faced the whispers of the forest and emerged victorious. But the Valley of Echoes would be a different challenge altogether. Here, sound was both friend and foe, and he would need to tread carefully. As he stepped forward, the sound of his boots against the rocky ground echoed back to him, louder and sharper than he had expected. The echoes bounced off the cliffs, growing in volume and intensity, until it seemed as if 100 footsteps were following him. Arion paused, listening, but there was no one else there, only the valley, playing tricks with the sound. With each step, the echoes grew more complex, layering over each other until they became a cacophony of noise. It was disorienting, and Arion found it difficult to focus, his senses overwhelmed by the barrage of sound. He tried to tune it out, but the echoes seemed to press in on him, filling the air until there was no space left to breathe. Suddenly, a voice rang out, clear and distinct above the noise. It was his own voice, but distorted and twisted, as if it had been bent and reshaped by the valley. "Turn back, Arion," the voice called, repeating the words he had spoken to himself earlier. "You are not strong enough for this journey." Arion knew it was the valley playing tricks on him, but the words still struck a chord of doubt within him. The valley was reflecting his innermost fears, amplifying them until they seemed all too real. For a moment, Arion hesitated, the weight of the echoes pressing down on him. But then, he remembered the voice that had guided him through the forest of whispers. The voice that had told him to trust in his heart. With renewed determination, Arion pushed forward, refusing to be swayed by the echoes of his doubts. He knew that the only way to conquer the valley was to face it head on. As he walked, he began to hum a tune, a simple melody that his mother had sung to him when he was a child. The sound of his voice, soft and steady, cut through the cacophony, creating a thread of clarity in the midst of the chaos. The echoes picked up the melody, repeating it back to him, but instead of distorting it, they harmonized with it, turning the simple tune into something grand and beautiful. Arion continued to hum, the melody growing stronger with each step. The valley responded in kind, the echoes shifting from chaotic noise to a symphony of sound. It was as if the valley was testing him, seeing if he could find harmony in the midst of discord. And Arion, with his heart and mind focused on the melody, rose to the challenge. As he reached the center of the valley, the path before him widened, revealing a deep chasm that split the valley in two. There was no bridge, no way to cross, only the chasm and the echoes that filled the air. Arian knew that the key to crossing lay in the music, in the harmony he had created with the valley. He took a deep breath and began to play the melody on his lyre, each note resonating with the echoes. The sound was pure, clear, and filled with the same cosmic energy that had drawn him to the celestial harp in the first place. The valley responded, the echoes forming into a bridge of sound, shimmering with an ethereal light. With his heart full of wonder and awe, Arian stepped onto the bridge, each footfall resonating with the music. The bridge held firm, carrying him safely across the chasm. As he reached the other side, the echoes began to fade, leaving behind a deep, resonant silence that was filled with peace. Arian looked back at the valley, now quiet and still, the echoes of his journey lingering in the air like the final notes of a song.
He had conquered the Valley of Echoes, not with force, but with harmony. And with this victory he knew that he was one step closer to the celestial harp. With renewed determination, Arian mounted Zephyr once more and continued on his journey, the melody of the valley still playing softly in his heart. The next trial awaited, and though the path ahead was uncertain, Arian knew that he carried with him the strength and wisdom to face whatever challenges lay in his way. The Valley of Echoes was now behind him, and before Prince Arian stood the towering peak of the mountain that guarded the next stage of his journey. The air was crisp and thin, the sky a deep, unending blue as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Zephyr, ever loyal, trod carefully along the narrow path that wound its way up the mountain, each step echoing faintly in the stillness. The mountain was formidable, its crags and cliffs like the jagged teeth of some ancient beast. The climb was steep and treacherous, the path barely wide enough for horse and rider, yet Arian pressed on, his gaze fixed on the summit where, he knew, the hidden temple awaited. As he ascended, the landscape grew more barren, the vegetation thinning until there was nothing but rock and sky. The wind, which had been a gentle breeze in the valley below, now howled through the peaks, carrying with it a sense of desolation. But Arian was undeterred. He had come too far to turn back now. Hours passed, and the climb grew more arduous. The air became colder, the wind sharper, cutting through his cloak as he urged Zephyr onward. But the map the mysterious stranger had given him remained tucked safely at his side, a constant reminder of his purpose. It had guided him this far, and Arian trusted that it would lead him to the temple. As the sun began its descent, casting the mountain in a golden light, Arian reached a plateau, a flat expanse of rock that seemed to hang suspended between the earth and the heavens. And there, at the far end of the plateau, was the hidden temple. The temple was unlike any structure Arian had ever seen. It was not built of stone or wood, but of something else entirely, something that shimmered and glowed with an inner light. The walls were smooth and polished, reflecting the sky as if they were made of liquid starlight. Pillars rose from the ground like beams of pure light, holding up a roof that seemed to blend seamlessly with the sky above. Arian dismounted Zephyr and approached the temple, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and anticipation. The entrance was wide and open, but there was no door, no barrier to prevent him from entering. It was as if the temple itself was inviting him in, welcoming him as a guest. As he crossed the threshold, Arian felt a sudden warmth envelop him, a sensation that was both comforting and otherworldly. The interior of the temple was vast, its ceiling high and arched, with walls that seemed to pulse with a soft celestial glow. At the center of the room, on a pedestal of pure light, rested the celestial harp. The harp was even more magnificent than Arian had imagined. Its frame was delicate and intricate, woven from strands of stardust that glimmered with every color of the cosmos. The strings were impossibly fine, like beams of light caught in a web of silver, and as Arian approached, he could hear a faint, ethereal melody emanating from it, as if the harp were already playing the music of the stars. Arian reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he touched the harp. The moment his fingers brushed the strings, a resonant chord filled the air, a sound so pure and beautiful that it brought tears to his eyes. The temple seemed to respond, the walls and pillars vibrating with the music, as if the entire structure were alive with the song of the cosmos. As the melody filled the room, Arian felt himself being lifted, his body becoming weightless, as if he were no longer bound to the earth. The temple around him dissolved into light, and suddenly he was soaring through the stars, the celestial harp guiding him on a journey through the very fabric of the universe. He saw constellations come to life, their stories unfolding before him in a dance of light and sound. He passed by nebulae that swirled in vibrant colors, their beauty overwhelming in its intensity. He flew through the rings of distant planets, each one resonating with its own unique melody, contributing to the grand symphony of the cosmos. Arian realized that the harp was not just an instrument, but a key that unlocked the mysteries of the universe, revealing the hidden truths that lay beyond the reach of mortal men. And as he journeyed through the stars, he understood that this was the knowledge he had been seeking, the wisdom that would guide him not just as a prince, but as a ruler, a protector of his people. The journey seemed to last an eternity and an instant, all at once.
Time lost its meaning as Arian traveled through the realms of the cosmos, guided by the harp's celestial melodies. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the journey ended. Arian found himself back in the temple, the harp still vibrating softly under his touch. The temple was silent now, the music of the stars having faded into a gentle hum. But Arian knew that the knowledge he had gained would remain with him forever, a part of him as surely as his own heartbeat. With reverence, he released the harp, stepping back as the celestial glow of the temple began to dim. The time had come to leave, to return to his kingdom and the world he had left behind. But Arian knew he was no longer the same prince who had begun this journey. He had been touched by the stars, and their light would guide him in the trials yet to come. As he stepped out of the temple and into the fading light of day, Arian felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. The path ahead was clear, and the celestial harp had given him the strength and wisdom to walk it. The journey was far from over, but Arion knew that whatever lay ahead, he would face it with the courage and the knowledge he had gained among the stars. With the celestial harp now in his possession, Prince Arion felt a new sense of purpose coursing through him. The journey had already tested his courage and resolve, but he knew that the most extraordinary part of his adventure was just beginning. As he descended from the mountain's peak, the temple slowly fading into the distance, the harp's melodies resonated within him, guiding his every step. The path before him was no longer of this world. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle above, Arion felt a shift in the air, a gentle tug, as if the heavens themselves were calling him. He knew instinctively what he must do. The harp was not merely an artifact to be admired. It was a gateway, a means of travel to realms beyond the mortal plane. Arion's heart swelled with both excitement and reverence as he strummed the first chord on the harp's stardust strings. The notes hung in the air, shimmering with an otherworldly light. The ground beneath him began to dissolve, giving way to a vast expanse of stars and cosmic wonders. Arion was no longer tethered to the earth. He was ascending, lifted by the celestial melodies that poured forth from the harp. Zephyr, his loyal steed, remained on the mountain's plateau, watching as his master was borne aloft on the wings of music. Arion found himself soaring through the heavens, the stars swirling around him in a breathtaking display of light and color. It was as if he had become part of the cosmos itself, moving in harmony with the celestial bodies that danced to the harp's tune. Constellations unfurled before him like grand tapestries, their stories told in bursts of light and shadow. He passed through the realms of the zodiac, where ancient beings of great power and wisdom resided. Each constellation welcomed him, recognizing the harp in his hands as a symbol of his worthiness. Arion marveled at the beauty and majesty of these celestial beings, their forms shifting and changing, composed of the very stars that lit the night sky. They imparted to him their knowledge, ancient and profound, teaching him the balance that governed the universe and the delicate threads that connected all things. As Arion continued his journey, he encountered the celestial beings known as the guardians of the stars. These ancient protectors, formed of pure light and energy, guided him through the vast reaches of the cosmos. They spoke to him in a language that transcended words, their voices like the hum of the universe itself. From them, Arion learned the secrets of the stars, how they were born, how they died, and how their light carried the memories of ages long past. Each encounter left Arion humbled and awed, his understanding of the universe expanding with every passing moment. He realized that the harp's melodies were not just music. They were the very essence of the cosmos, a universal language that connected all things, from the smallest grain of stardust to the mightiest of stars. The journey was not without its challenges. There were regions of the cosmos where the light dimmed and shadows loomed, where forgotten stars flickered weakly in the vast emptiness. Here, Arian felt the weight of the cosmos's sorrow, the remnants of ancient conflicts and lost civilizations. Yet, even in these dark places, the harp's music brought light and hope, its melodies weaving through the shadows like threads of silver, restoring balance where there was despair. As he traveled further, Arian came to a place where time itself seemed to stand still, a realm where the past, present, and future converged. Here, the harp's music took on a new tone, one that resonated with the deepest parts of his soul. Arian saw visions of his own life, the choices he had made, and the paths he had yet to walk. He saw his kingdom, his people, and the legacy he would leave behind. The visions were both beautiful and daunting, filled with both joy and sorrow. But through it all, the harp's music remained a constant, a reminder of the wisdom he had gained and the journey he had undertaken. It was in this moment that Arian understood the true purpose of his quest. The celestial harp was not just a key to the cosmos. It was a guide, a teacher, and a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. The journey had shown him the vastness of the universe, but it had also shown him the importance of his own role within it. At last, after what felt like both an eternity and a single heartbeat, the celestial journey began to draw to a close. The guardians of the stars bade him farewell, their forms dissolving into the light of the constellations. The music of the harp began to soften, its notes drifting like leaves on a gentle breeze. Arian felt himself descending, the stars receding as he was slowly drawn back to the world he knew. When his feet finally touched solid ground, Arian found himself once more on the mountain's plateau, the hidden temple now behind him. The night sky stretched out above, as familiar as it was vast, and the celestial harp rested quietly in his hands, its music now a soft hum in the back of his mind. The journey had changed him in ways he could not fully comprehend, but one thing was certain. He had glimpsed the heart of the cosmos, and the knowledge he had gained would guide him in the trials that awaited. With a deep breath, Arian turned his gaze back to the path ahead. The journey was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in his way, knowing that the wisdom of the stars would always be with him. The stars had shown Prince Arian the wonders of the cosmos, but as his feet returned to solid ground, he knew that the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The celestial harp, now quiet in his hands, had guided him through the mysteries of the universe, but it could not shield him from the trials of the heart. The temple's teachings had made it clear. True wisdom was not found only in the stars, but in the choices one made on the earth below. As Arion descended from the mountain's peak, the world around him seemed both familiar and strange. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, the sky above a deep indigo, dotted with the very stars he had just traversed. But something had changed within him. The weight of the knowledge he carried pressed heavily on his soul, mingling with a sense of foreboding that grew stronger with each step. The path led him back into the heart of his kingdom, the landscape gradually shifting from wild, untamed nature to the rolling hills and fertile fields that surrounded the castle. The sight of his homeland, once so comforting, now stirred conflicting emotions within him. He had been gone longer than he realized, and the peace he had left behind had been replaced by a creeping shadow. As he approached the castle gates, Arion noticed the signs of unrest. Guards stationed more frequently, their eyes wary, and the villagers, usually bustling with the joy of daily life, moved with a quiet urgency, their faces drawn with worry. The harp in Arion's hands seemed to grow heavier, as if sensing the darkness that had settled over the land in his absence. When Arion entered the castle, he was greeted by his father, King Alaric, who appeared older and more weary than the prince remembered. The king's face, usually so full of strength and resolve, was etched with deep lines of concern. Arion's heart ached at the sight of his father, knowing that whatever had transpired in his absence had taken a heavy toll. "Arion, my son," King Alaric greeted him, his voice tinged with both relief and sorrow. "You have returned. I feared the worst when you did not come back as expected." "I am here, father," Arion replied, embracing the king. "But I see that our kingdom is not as I left it. What has happened?" The king sighed deeply, gesturing for Arion to follow him into the great hall. As they walked, he spoke of the troubles that had befallen the land: unrest among the nobles, disputes over resources, and whispers of rebellion from those who sought to exploit the king's perceived weakness. But most troubling of all were the rumors of a dark force, something unnatural that had begun to spread through the kingdom, sowing discord and fear. "I have done my best to keep the peace," King Alaric said, his voice heavy with the burden of leadership. "But it is as if something is working against us, turning even our most loyal subjects against the crown. I do not know how much longer we can hold on." Arion's heart tightened with the weight of his father's words. He had journeyed through the cosmos, seen wonders beyond imagination, yet here, in his own land, his people were suffering. The knowledge he had gained from the stars seemed distant and abstract, a far cry from the immediate challenges he now faced. As night fell, Arion retreated to his chambers, the celestial harp resting on a stand beside his bed. But sleep did not come easily. His mind was troubled by visions of his kingdom in turmoil, his people lost to the darkness that crept ever closer. He knew that the harp held great power, but he also understood that its magic was not meant to solve earthly problems. It was a guide, a source of wisdom, but not a tool for conquest or control. The harp's soft hum filled the room, its strings vibrating gently as if responding to Arian's troubled thoughts. He knew what it was asking of him, the test that lay before him. The true challenge was not to wield the harp's power, but to use the knowledge he had gained to heal his kingdom, to bring light to the darkness through his own choices, his own heart. In the silence of the night, Orion made his decision. He would not return to the stars to seek more knowledge or power. Instead, he would confront the darkness in his land, not with force, but with the wisdom and compassion he had learned from the cosmos. He would reach out to those who opposed the crown, listen to their grievances, and find a way to unite his people once more. The next morning, Arian gathered the council, his voice steady and clear as he spoke of the challenges ahead. He spoke not as a prince seeking to assert his power, but as a leader determined to heal the divisions within his kingdom. He called for peace, for understanding, and for a return to the values that had once made their land strong. The road ahead would not be easy. Arian knew this, but he also knew that it was the only path to true peace. The test of the heart was not about strength or power, but about love, empathy, and the courage to do what was right, even in the face of great adversity. As he left the council chamber, the celestial harp's quiet melody accompanied him, a reminder that the wisdom of the stars was with him, guiding his every step. The darkness that had taken root in his kingdom would not be easily vanquished, but Arian was ready to face it, knowing that the true strength of a leader lay not in his ability to command, but in his capacity to love and protect those he served. With the weight of the kingdom's troubles on his shoulders, Prince Arian set out to mend the fractures that had spread during his absence. The celestial harp remained a steadfast companion, its gentle hum a constant reminder of the wisdom he had gained during his celestial journey. But now, Arian's path was rooted firmly in the earth, where the complexities of human hearts and the shadows of discontent awaited his resolve. Arian began by visiting the villages that lay scattered across the kingdom, places that had once thrived but now bore the signs of unrest. The people greeted him with a mix of hope and hesitation, their eyes reflecting both their loyalty to the crown and the doubts that had been sown in his absence. Arian listened to their concerns, his heart heavy with the realization that the darkness threatening his kingdom was not just an external force, but also the fear and mistrust that had taken root in his people. In each village, Arian spoke with the elders and the youth, the farmers and the artisans. He listened more than he spoke, allowing the people to voice their grievances and fears. The celestial harp remained silent during these conversations, its strings untouched, as if recognizing that this was a time for human voices to be heard. Orion found that the darkness plaguing his kingdom was multifaceted. There were disputes over land and resources, born from scarcity and exacerbated by the whisperings of those who sought to divide the kingdom for their gain. There were also fears of a rising threat, an unseen force that had begun to haunt the outskirts of the land, sowing chaos and despair. Yet, amidst the gloom, there were also stories of resilience and hope, of neighbors helping one another in times of need, of communities banding together to protect their homes from the encroaching darkness. Arion took these stories to heart, seeing in them the true spirit of his people, the strength that had not yet been extinguished. As he traveled, Arion began to piece together a plan, one that would address the immediate needs of his people, while also confronting the greater threat that loomed over the kingdom. He knew that he could not do it alone. He would need the support of his council, the wisdom of the elders, and the courage of the young. But most importantly, he would need to rekindle the trust that had been lost. Upon his return to the castle, Arion convened a council of the kingdom's leaders. The great hall, once a place of festivity and celebration, was now filled with a somber determination. The nobles, once divided by their own ambitions, were united by a common fear: the survival of the kingdom. Arion stood before them, the celestial harp by his side, and spoke of the journey he had undertaken. He spoke of the wisdom he had gained among the stars, of the balance that must be maintained, not just in the cosmos, but within their own land. He urged them to set aside their differences, to work together to restore peace and prosperity to the kingdom. The harp's quiet hum seemed to amplify his words, resonating with the hearts of those gathered. The council, moved by Arion's sincerity and the strength of his conviction, agreed to his plan. They would work together to distribute resources more fairly, to address the grievances of the people, and to fortify the kingdom against the dark forces that threatened their way of life. But Arion knew that words alone would not be enough. He took it upon himself to lead the efforts, to be present among his people as they rebuilt their trust in the crown. He visited the troubled regions, bringing with him supplies and support. But more importantly, he brought with him the celestial harp, playing its melodies to lift the spirits of those who had begun to lose hope. The harp's music, filled with the echoes of the stars, seemed to weave a protective light around the kingdom. Where there had been fear, there was now courage. Where there had been division, there was now unity. The darkness that had crept into the hearts of the people began to recede, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. Yet, the true test was still to come. Arion knew that the unseen force that had haunted the kingdom was not yet vanquished. The shadows that had been pushed back would soon return, and when they did, the kingdom would need to stand united. But for now, there was peace. A fragile peace, but peace nonetheless. As the days passed, Arian's efforts began to bear fruit. The kingdom slowly regained its strength, the people's trust in their leaders restored. The celestial harp, once a guide through the cosmos, had now become a symbol of hope and resilience. Its melodies echoing through the land as a reminder of the light that could be found even in the darkest of times. Arian knew that the journey was not over, that challenges still lay ahead. But he also knew that he was no longer the same prince who had set out on a quest for the celestial harp. He had seen the vastness of the universe, and he had faced the trials of the heart. He had learned that true leadership was not about power, but about understanding, compassion, and the willingness to stand with his people, no matter the cost. With the kingdom beginning to heal, Orion turned his gaze once more to the stars. The harp's soft hum, a constant companion. The journey had changed him, but it had also prepared him for what was to come. Whatever darkness lay ahead, he would face it with the knowledge that the light of the cosmos was always within reach, guiding him and his people toward a brighter future.